Hey y'all, today we are going to be reading chapter 27. It's Muhammad's story. The last time we read Muhammad was last week, and if you remember, um, they had just encountered the boat that they were supposed to be taking across the Mediterranean Sea to Greece from Turkey. And when they saw this boat, they realized the danger that they were going to be facing, as this boat was more of a raft. And we saw some issues of them encountering some large waves. People were getting seasick, and we kind of all determined that this was going to be a dangerous journey for Muhammad. So I'm going to read this for you. I'll be stopping to ask questions along the way, and I'll be inserting those questions to this ed puzzle so that you can answer them right here. And once you're done answering the question, you like hit next to submit it, and then you'll hear me continuing to read. So you also can follow along here. That will help. The cold water was like a slap in Muhammad's face. Before he could think, he gasped, sucking in a mouthful of the dark Mediterranean Sea. He tumbled backward, head down in the murky water, his arms and feet thrashing, trying to right himself. Someone else fell on top of him, pushing him deeper down into the water. He choked, coughed, swallowed more water. Bodies tumbled into the water above him, beside him, below him. His knees struck something hard and sharp, a rock, and he felt a cold flash of pain that quickly disappeared into blind, senseless terror. He was drowning. The rubber dinghy had burst against the rocks, and he was drowning. Muhammad kicked, paddled, flailed. His face came out of the water, and he gulped down air, and then a wave washed over him again, and he went down. He kicked his way back to the surface and fought to keep his head above water. "Mom? Dad?" Muhammad cried. His yells were mixed with screams and cries of the other passengers who had made it back to the surface. All around Muhammad, survivors thrashed and grasped, swamped by the choppy waves. There was nothing left of the dinghy. The engine had dragged the rest of it down. So I'm curious what you think will happen, how they're going to continue this journey without their boat. Their boat has it's just gone. It's popped a hole in it, so it's not usable anymore. So tell me what you think. All right, let's keep going. Muhammad saw something bobbing along the water, glowing. A cell phone. It was still sealed tight in the plastic bag. The air in the bag kept keeping it afloat. Muhammad swam for it, ducking a wave and pawing the bag into his arms. The glowing phone screen said 2:32 a.m. "Help! Help!" Muhammad's mother sobbed, her voice recognizable in the chaos. Muhammad spun, oriented himself, and frog-kicked his way through the waves toward the shape he thought was his mother. He picked her pink heartscarf out of the swirling pandemonium and saw that she was fighting to lift something up out of the water. Hannah. Muhammad swam to his mother. Hannah was crying. She was alive. But it was all Muhammad's mother could do to keep the baby and her own face above the relentless waves. One or the other one of them was going to drown. Muhammad put his arms around his mother and tried to kick her and Hannah both to the surface. But half the time he felt like he was dragging them down with them. "Fatima! Muhammad!" he heard his father cry. Muhammad turned to see his father with Walid in his arms. "The life preservers are useless," he roared, his head appearing and disappearing behind the waves. "They're fakes." What do you think this idea of the life preserves, their life jackets being fake? What does that tell you about the people that they bought these life jackets from. Remember, they had to purchase these life jackets. The man that they purchased them from said, for when your boat tips, not if. So what do you think this idea of them being fake means? Fake? Muhammad was furious, but his anger quickly faded. Every ounce of his energy was focused on kicking, swimming. If he stopped, he and his mother and sister would drown. There were other people around them, yelling, searching, fighting to stay afloat. But as far as Muhammad was concerned, his world was 4 meters round. Where did they go from here? How did they get out of the sea and onto dry land? They were lost in the stormy Mediterranean Sea in the middle of the night. Their dinghy was sunk, and though it had run into rocks, there wasn't any land in sight. They were going to die here, all of them. Muhammad breathed in seawater through his nose and hacked it up. He fought to breathe the waves lapping over him, in rain and spray still lashing his face. But his baby sister's cries refocused him. He could not lose her. He couldn't lose any of them. They came together in the water, Muhammad and his mother and father, all of them helping Hannah and Walid and each other stay afloat. Other families and groups did the same, but eventually the little groups drifted apart from each other, none of them knowing which way they were supposed to go. All they could do was stay on top of the next wave, the next wave, the next wave. Kick off your shoes, Muhammad's father told them. Anything to lighten you. Time passed, the rain stopped, the waxing moon even peeked out from behind a cloud, but just as quickly it was dark again, and the cold wind and the salty spray in the swelling sea still tormented them. Muhammad's legs were numb with cold and exhaustion. They felt like 2 lead weights he struggled to lift and turn to stay afloat. His mother had been quietly sobbing for what seemed like forever. Her arms no longer held Hannah above the wave, but just on top of it, like she was pushing along a tiny barge. Muhammad's father did the same with Walid, trying to save his strength. Hannah had gone as quiet as Walid, and Muhammad wondered if they were still alive. He couldn't ask. Wouldn't. If he didn't ask, he couldn't know for sure, and as long as he didn't know for sure, there was still a chance they were alive. Muhammad slipped beneath the waves once more, longer this time. It was getting so hard to come up again, to keep himself afloat. He rose again, pushing air out of his nose, but he was so tired, so very, very tired. He wished for a respite from swimming, just a moment to sit without working his arms and legs, to close his eyes and go to sleep. It sounds so crazy to hear that Muhammad is just wanting to just be still for a moment. Think about yourself, when you're sitting around and how you can just chill and sit there. And that's all he wants, is to just be able to not have to continue to move for his life. Water was sloshing in and out of Muhammad's ears, but he thought he heard a drone just above the howl of the wind. In Syria, that sound would have sent him ducking for cover. But now, it made his eyes widen. His legs kicked just a little harder, a little higher. Why is Muhammad wanting to hear this sound? What's different about where he is now and what this sound could mean versus what that sound meant in Syria? There, coming at them out of the darkness, another dinghy full of people. Muhammad and his mother and father waved their arms and cried out for help. At last, the people on board saw them, but as the dinghy came closer, it didn't slow down. They weren't going to stop. The front of the dinghy chopped past Muhammad, and he lunged for one of the handholds on the side. He caught it and grabbed his mother before the dinghy pulled him away. He swung Mom to the side of the dinghy, and she grabbed hold, the wake from it almost swamping Hannah. Behind them, Muhammad's father also reached for the dinghy, but missed. It turned along, bouncing in the chop, and Muhammad's father and brother disappeared into the darkness. "Dad? Dad!" Muhammad cried, still holding onto the dinghy. "Let go!" a woman in the dinghy yelled down at him. "You're dragging on us." "Let us in, please," Muhammad begged. It was all his mother could do to hang on to the dinghy and to Hannah. "We can't. There's no room," a man inside the dinghy yelled. "Please," Muhammad begged, "we're drowning." "I'll call the Coast Guard for you," a man said. "I have their number on my phone." Another man reached down and tried to pry Muhammad's hand from the dinghy. "You're tipping us." "Please," Muhammad cried. He sobbed with the effort of fighting off the man's fingers and hanging onto the dinghy. "Please take us with you." "No. No room." "At least take my sister," Muhammad begged. "She's a baby. She won't take up any room." That caused much yelling and discussion on the boat. A man tried to pry Muhammad loose again, but he hung on. "Please," Muhammad begged. A woman appeared at the side of the boat, her arms reaching down to Muhammad's mother, reaching for the baby. Muhammad's mother lifted the little ball of wet blankets up to the woman. "Her name is Hannah," she said, struggling to be heard above the roar of the engine and the splash of the waves. Someone finally pried Muhammad's fingers off the side, and he slipped into the water and tumbled in the dinghy's wake. When he came up, he saw his mother had let go of the dinghy too. She was crying, great howling tears, and tearing at her clothes. Muhammad swam over to her and wrestled her hands into stillness, and she put her head on Muhammad's shoulder and sobbed. Muhammad's sister was gone, and so were his father and brother. I want you to think. Muhammad's sister is now on this boat. Where's his dad and his brother? And what might happen to his sister? Their dinghy is still floating. But is that going to last, or are they going to end up in the water like Muhammad's dinghy crashed?